Welcome, everyone. I'm Steve Farrell, the Worldwide Executive Director for Humanities team, and I'm super excited to be here with you for this free program called Technology versus True Power. Tap into your innate ability to accomplish almost anything and change the world. This is an online program with best-selling author Gregg Braden. This program is part of a free online video series with Gregg Braden, Bruce Lipton, and Lynn McTaggart called Discover Why You Don't Need Technology to Take a Giant Leap Forward in Human Development. Thanks so much for joining us. We've got a really powerful program in store for you. As we get started, I'm going to give Gregg a proper introduction. Gregg Braden is a 5-time New York Times bestselling author, researcher, educator, lecturer, and internationally renowned as a pioneer bridging modern science, spirituality, and human potential. His research has led to 15 film credits and 12 award-winning books now published in over 40 languages. The United Kingdom's Watkins Journal lists Gregg among the top 100 of the world's most spiritually influential living people for the 6th consecutive year, and he is a 2020 nominee for the prestigious Templeton Award, established to honor outstanding individuals who have devoted their talents to expanding our vision of human purpose and ultimate reality. And welcome to the program, Gregg.
Oh, Steve, thank you so much. It's so good to be here. It's really good to see you. I love listening to that introduction, especially the part about me being living. See, that living criteria, that makes all the difference in the world. So I just want to thank you and Humanities team for allowing us, Bruce Lipton, my dear friend and colleague for over 30 years, and Lynn McTaggart, the three of us, for the opportunity to share this particular body of information that's never been shared before in the way that we're going to do. So I just want to say that right off the bat. Thank you all for your vision and your dedication, your perseverance for making this possible.
Gregg, as we get started, just to kind of go back in time a little bit, we conceived this program together about a year ago, and we said that it was going to be about the role of technology that is blurring the line between human and machine, and that this is happening in ways that people are not even aware of. You shared that transhuman, this term transhuman, is one of the terms that's surfacing to describe this. And you also shared that it's critical that people understand who we are before we give ourselves away. That's your quote. Do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Well, thank you, Steve. And I think this is perhaps one of the most critical bodies of information that we could share at this time in history, and it is also one of the least discussed. There's a battle, Steve, that's unfolding in our lives and in our world. It's a battle that's seldom talked about in mainstream media, but it's playing out through technology and society in a way that is so obvious many people are not even recognizing. You know, it's often said the best way to hide something is to keep it in plain sight. And the battle that's playing out between technology and our humanness is happening precisely that way. New technology is being developed that mimics, and in some cases is designed to replace, natural biological functions that we have, and it is being embraced very, very quickly in some societies, even faster than others. And the danger of this, Steve, is that these devices, the chips, the wires implanted into the brain, implanted into other parts of the body. What the evidence suggests is that when we begin to embrace the technology, that our natural abilities begin to atrophy. The biology begins to atrophy. And I want to be very clear with you and with our viewers where I am on this. I'm not saying it's right, wrong, good, or bad. What I'm saying is it's happening so quickly that we risk compromising and losing unique qualities that make us human before we even know what those qualities are, before we even know fully what it means to be human. Now, for a lot of people, they say, well, you know, what do you mean? We've got the biology down, you know, really well. In some respects, we do. But, you know, new discoveries, some of them are less than a year old, Steve. We are still discovering classes of neurons in the human brain that we never knew existed. For example, in 2018, a neuron was discovered that surprised the medical scientists. They were doing experiments with pharmaceuticals in test animals, that very closely resemble the biology of humans. And if the thinking is, if they work in the test animals, that they will work in humans. They were working in the animals, they didn't work in the humans. And the question is, what made us so very different? And it led to new scans of the human brain that reveal a new class of neurons unique to humans that actually regulate consciousness. These are the neurons that allow us to regulate the state of awareness and the consciousness, the states of consciousness that we access. They were just found, and it was announced in a very prestigious journal, Nature, August of 2018. So these neurons, I mean, this is just one example. We're still discovering what we are and what it means to be human. And the purpose of this program, of us putting this together, and Bruce and Lynn and I all feel the same way about this, is let's find out this extraordinary potential that lives within each of us. Let's find out what that potential is and how we can apply it in our lives to become the best versions of ourselves and create the best families, the strongest societies, ultimately, Steve, the best world possible. And you know, I think this would be important at any time in our lives. But I think it's beyond important. I think it is vital, it's critical now, because the world is changing so fast. And we've got to change the way we think, the way we solve our problems, the way we live, to meet the challenges that life has brought to our doorstep in this changing world. And it's difficult to do that if we are stuck in the thinking that led to the problems. And a lot of that thinking has to do with human biology being limited, with us being powerless victims of our circumstance, of our lives. So the discoveries that we'll share, they apply not only on a personal level, but ultimately on the level of society and beyond. The better we know ourselves, the better equipped we are to deal with whatever life does bring to our doorstep. And the better we know ourselves, I think what we're going to find, Steve, is the less we feel the need for the external technology, because this is the key. And I'm going to say this again and again, we are the technology. We are the technology. We are a technologically advanced, highly sophisticated, soft technology, not wires and chips, but we're talking about membranes and fluids, and the ability to self-regulate all of the energy that runs through the soft biology in our prayers, in our affirmations, thoughts, feelings, emotions, beliefs in everyday life. So it's a long answer to a short question. This is why I think this is such a vital program, because it's about us at the most intimate level we could imagine, Steve, at the very core of our being and our relationship to our existence.
Yeah, boy, as you mentioned, it's such an important topic. So let's just dive in and go deeper. Yeah. I'm just really grateful that we're offering this program to the world at this time, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions here. So let's go deeper into this whole who we are part, and just maybe start with, can you share how to access these new pathways to healing and creating optimal states of physical and emotional health?
Sure. The thinking in conventional biology is that we are the product of random processes, Steve. We are the product of random mutations over long periods of time, as Darwin suggested in his book, Origin of Species in 1859, that life in general and humans specifically are the product of these random processes. Here's the key. One of the corollaries to Darwin's thinking from one of the people that worked with him to develop the theory, his name was Alfred Wallace. And what Alfred Wallace said, there was a corollary to Darwin's theory of evolution that said nature never overendows. That's his exact words. And what that means is that a form of life, any form of life, will only have and bring into existence the capabilities that are needed for it to survive in its environment in that moment in time. So, for example, studies have shown the moths in England, for example, during the industrial period, when the sky was thick with soot, the moths would stand out because they were lighter color and they were easy prey for the birds. So they very quickly adapted a darker color to their wings so that they would blend in with the soot that was on the walls and the buildings and things like that. That's a perfect example. Here's where this is a problem for we humans, is we appeared on Earth 200,000 years ago, and scientists agree with that. The controversy is how we got here. We appeared on Earth 200,000 years ago, fully intact, fully enabled, with a brain 50% larger than any other our nearest primate relatives, an extended neural network that we're going to talk about in this program that allows us to self-regulate our own biology. And if you compare our DNA now to the DNA that's extracted from ancient fossils representing those forms of life, we haven't changed. That is not Darwin's idea of evolution. We arrived with everything we need light years beyond what was needed to survive in that moment. It was already with us. So we are now at this point in our evolutionary process. Evolution is a fact. I want to be very clear. As a geologist, I'm a degree geologist. Evolution is a fact. I've seen it in the fossil record for many forms of life. It breaks down at that 200,000 year point for humans. Something else happened that imbued us with these extraordinary abilities that no other form of life is known to have at this point in time. And the key, this is again a long answer to your very brief question, the key that is going to open the door to this entire course is, and I'm going to speak directly to our viewers, Steve. I'm going to say, viewers, you are the only form of life that is known to exist with the ability to consciously sit down in a moment in time and self-regulate the biology of your being. And here's what I mean by that. The only form of life that can consciously choose a moment in time where you awaken the enzymes for longevity in your body, where you strengthen your immune response because you choose to. And boy, if we ever needed a stronger immune response, I can't think of a better time than right now with all of the things that are happening in the world. We're the only form of life that can access deep states of intuition when we choose, on demand, create resilience to life's change on demand, and so much more. No other form of life can do this, but it goes beyond that. Steve, we've got about 50 trillion cells in the human body, every cell about 0.07 volts of electrical potential. We're the only form of life that can harness that electrical potential in our bodies and direct it to our own personal healing, to our, excuse me, our own intuition, and the way that we function in everyday life so that we are optimized on demand. And Bruce and Lynn and myself, we're going to share, first of all, the discoveries so that the left brain can embrace these extraordinary potentials. Once you see the peer-reviewed science, rock-solid science, you say, my God, I didn't know that. How do I apply it in my life? And then that opens the door to the right brain and the heart so we can go in and access the techniques and the potentials. So again, long answer to a short question, but it's all very different from the way we've been taught to think about ourselves. And I believe that's why we are pushing the external technology, because we believe we are lacking in abilities that we've actually had from the very beginning.
Yeah, fascinating. Opening the right brain and the heart. Wow, you know, it's a lot to that. So we're going to just keep unfolding this conversation. So Gregg, can you recommend simple techniques that allow you to achieve advanced brain states that are key to unlocking your superhuman potentials?
One of the technologies, Steve, that is being introduced, and again, I'm going to reiterate, I'm not saying it's right, wrong, good, or bad. I'm saying it's a slippery slope. It is the development of a chip, a physical chip to be implanted into the tissue of the human brain that actually takes the neurons and connects the neurons with the chip. And with that chip, gives the user the ability to interact with their hard drive on their computer with no wires or cables. It's a Bluetooth-like technology. Without any, so what we're talking about is a direct link from human neurons into the hard drive. And the reason I think that this is such a slippery slope is because it was only in 2004 scientists discovered a class of neurons that allow us to learn very quickly. And that's what these chips are being designed to do. So we can learn very quickly from information on our computer's hard drive. If we want to learn a language, or if we want to learn mathematics or something like that. The chips are being designed to allow us to access that information directly. Well, we have what are called mirror neurons, or technically cubelli neurons, that allow us, if we know how to access them, if we know how to implement them in our lives. These neurons don't know the difference between having an experience and watching someone else have the experience, or picking up information externally. So what this means, Steve, is that, for example, if the brain doesn't know the difference between having an experience and watching someone else have the experience, think about the potential for healing. If we can feed those mirror neurons images of our own healing, what happens is, because the brain doesn't know the difference, it begins to create the chemistry and sends the signals to the body, and it says, hey, body, we better create the chemistry to match this image of healing that we're now receiving. And this is one of the potentials that you're talking about. And we don't want to risk losing this kind of biology by giving our power away to the external technology. And we begin to implant artificial chips into the brain that do things for us. It's the use it or lose it principle. Our natural biology begins to atrophy because we're not using it. We're not using those neural connections. If we don't use them, they do begin to atrophy. So this is just one example. I'm actually answering two questions. I'm answering your question. One of the ways that we can access the technology is through the cubelli, or the mirror neurons. And all this is described in the program in more detail, of course. But secondly, a beautiful example of the potential for external technology to be embraced quickly without fully knowing the extent of our own ability, and losing our ability once that technology is there. It's kind of like, I think most of our viewers here probably remember a time when we didn't have mobile phones. Everything was done on landline, or payphone in an airport or something like that. They're pretty rare to see these days. And when the mobile phones were introduced, it was a choice as to whether or not they were used. Some people had them, some people didn't. And now we have an entire generation of young people that does not know life without those mobile phones, and depends on those phones for more than saying hello to someone. Depends on them for, it is social connection. Is also the apps on the phone are used in schoolwork. They're used in health. They're used in food preparation. Everything is done on these phones. So what was a choice in one generation became a necessity in the way things are doing only one generation later. When we talk about replacing neurons with chips, we're looking at the same possibility. What may be a choice in one generation becomes the way things are done in the next generation. And pretty soon, 2 or 3 generations down the road, no one even knows what the mirror neurons are. We begin to lose those potentials. So there are places where this technology can be very, very good, Steve. This is one of those places. I am a scientist. As I mentioned, I'm a degree geologist, and I've heard this from my scientific colleagues. We're at this point, Steve. It's a really delicate, very critical crossroad where technology is pushing morality. Just because we have the technology doesn't mean that we should use it. The technology is developing faster than our understanding of how it's applied. So there are two schools of thought. Some scientists say because we have it, we're meant to use it. Other scientists say, well, not so fast. Just because we developed it, we have the ability to determine when it's appropriate to use this technology. So maybe the chips aren't good for recreation. I'm not recommending recreational chips in the brain. However, if you or a loved one has served on the battlefield of Afghanistan or Iraq and lost access to a limb or multiple limbs, and with a prosthetic and a chip, you now have the ability to hold your baby in your arms one more time, or to brush your own teeth, or wash your own hair, or take a shower, or care for yourself, or play an instrument that you had mastered before your accident. I mean, what a beautiful blessing. So I believe there's a place for the technology, and it's up to us. We're at the place, this critical crossroad. We must determine where we go with that technology, because once we go down the path of replacing human biology with artificial chips, wires, and devices, we aren't going to go back. And we need to make that choice right now.
Yeah, boy. So, which is why this program is so important because, in many respects, I think technology's been put on the altar, so to speak, and we really need to be looking more critically at this technology and human consciousness, human capacity. So, which is what our program is about here.